Hello and welcome to my weekly video blog, and today on A Vogel Talks Menopause we are going to be talking about postmenopause, the good, the bad and the problematic. If you like my tips and advice, then please subscribe and remember to hit the bell icon so you can be notified of all my new videos. So the final stage of the menopause is when your body learns to adjust to lower levels of hormones. And that brings some other things to be aware of, but it's not all bad. So this week, my friend and A Vogel's nutritional practitioner, Ali, and I, we are going to chat about the good, the bad, and the sometimes problematic aspects of postmenopause, including our own experiences. So first of all, what is postmenopause and what happens? I think this is one of the really confusing questions that we get asked on a regular basis. So in a lot of sources, they say that you're postmenopause 1 year after your periods have stopped. We tend to say two though, don't we? Because we do get a lot of women coming back saying their periods have come back between 1 and 2 years. So that's that.
Yeah. A little bleed about 18 months in is really common. So don't worry if that happens, then that is very common. So that's why it's safer to wait 2 years until you've not had any periods, and then you can be sure it's all done.
Mm-hmm. But the thing to remember is that when we talk about postmenopause, it doesn't suddenly mean that your symptoms disappear at the end of the second year. All that time scale is really to do with is the fact that you're no longer ovulating and therefore you're safe from pregnancy. However, we do know that symptoms can persist after that.
Yeah, because you've still got a cycle. You may not have high enough levels of hormones to enable you to ovulate, but it doesn't mean that you don't still have a cycle of hormones rising and falling. So the way that I explain it is that it's a bit like when the train tracks are rattling, but the train doesn't arrive. So you've still got that rattle going on, you've still got a cycle, and so you can still have symptoms that are associated with the rise and fall of your hormone levels. And obviously you're still going to have symptoms as your body gets used to having lower levels of hormones that ensure that you don't have a pregnancy.
And we do know too that symptoms can continue for a number of years or get worse, especially if you don't deal with them. So the main issues, I think, for a lot of women are vaginal dryness, joint aches and pains, and also fatigue. But remember that these things can just be, when I say just, they can be a sign of aging,
natural aging processes.
Yes, not necessarily the hormones. So again, it's quite important that you don't just hope that in 2 or 3 years' time these symptoms are going to suddenly disappear. You need to be aware of them, and you do need to support yourself through them in some way or another.
Absolutely. So things like the dryness, which can be vaginal dryness, but it can be eye dryness, it can be skin dryness. I found my skin's carried on getting drier. So you have to actually deal with those things. So treat them. So looking at hydration.
Yes,
usual.
water.
Looking at things like your essential fatty acids, your healthy fats in your diet, maybe taking supplements like omega-7 or hyaluronic acid to help support your skin as well. But then things like with fatigue, if that continues and you're getting things like hair loss as well, then it is a good idea to check your thyroid function, because you can have thyroid issues later on in life. I think it's just very important to chase up these symptoms and make sure it's not something that you could be dealing with, like a thyroid issue, rather than just assuming, oh, it's my hormones.
I know. And we do get a lot of women in their 70s and 80s who suddenly get symptoms back and are then saying, is this the menopause coming back? And we're like, well, no.
It's really not. If it's been 2 years or more since you had a period and you've got symptoms returning or new symptoms coming along, please don't assume that's your menopause, because it does need to be investigated. You need to look at why that's happening, because it could quite easily be something that is nothing to do with the menopause.
The only one thing that we do get is that some women come off HRT, and that can trigger symptoms again. So again, we always say just double check with your doctor for that. But I think, looking at the good part of the menopause, what's been your best thing? What have you kind of found seems to be better afterwards rather than beforehand?
I would definitely say that you are better equipped to deal with life as you get older. So things that would have stressed me previously don't stress me now. So a little story would be last weekend I got stuck in a lift. The lift, various technical reasons, the lift doors were not for opening. So this would have totally freaked me out back in the day. But even though the call button wasn't working, the alarm wasn't working, it wasn't something that really fazed me the way it would have done previously. And I definitely find that we're better equipped, as I say, to deal with whatever life throws at us, which is something you shouldn't underestimate. It's a wonderful thing about being older.
Yeah. I think for me, I have become much more adventurous. I mean, you know what I'm like. I'm just anything challenges. I'm out there, and that's not something I would have done pre-menopause. I was very kind of scared almost, and the fact even now that I'm doing all these videos and these things. If anybody had told me I'd be doing that, I'd have just said, "Don't be silly." There's no way. I'd be too scared to do anything. So I think for me, it's been about confidence, self-worth, and just realising, and I think one of the big things is it doesn't matter if you make mistakes. We don't care about that anymore, which is great.
And I think that a lot of women learn to curate their life load a bit better, which is so important because so much gets put onto women to do and to tackle and to manage, and just being able to say no to things that aren't necessary and make sure that some of the things that are coming into your life are things that you enjoy and that are good for you and that make you happy. That's all really important. Actually allocating time to make sure that you get your sleep, you get your rest, that you have time to prepare good food. All of those things are super important. And I think as we get older, hopefully we are learning more to prioritise those things for ourselves.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And self-care is so important in terms of diet. I mean, we're both very much into exercise. And again, I kept fit beforehand, but not to the extent I do now. And I know for me that exercising regularly really keeps me fit, both physically and mentally as well. And if I miss a week or two, it really tells on me sort of joint-wise and muscle-wise. So that little bit of extra self-care can be worth its weight in gold.
But again, experience teaches you what works for you. And I think its consistency is as important. So, not knocking yourself out, but just making sure that you're having consistent little dollops of exercise in your life.
And the me time, really important. I will talk about that on and on and on, definitely. So I hope you've enjoyed our little chat. I mean, to be honest, we could go on forever, but we realise people are really busy these days. If any of you have had any tips where you have found post-menopause, your life has completely changed in ways that you could never imagine, then please share them. That the more we can get out there that post-menopause is not the end, but it's the beginning of another chapter of your life, and you can go forward with enthusiasm and positivity too. So until then, I will see you next week for another edition of A. Vogel Talks Menopause.